Kevin here, crazy bearded Christian. Wow, that was fun trying to get that out. Thought I'd come back to you all this evening and have a little talk with you about something that you might be curious about. Maybe you're wondering about this, or maybe you're in this situation. But the topic that we're going to talk about today is, can you be a public school teacher and be a Christian? Can you effectively do it? I'm going to tell you hands down that you absolutely can be a Christian, live the life of a Christian, and be a public school teacher. How do you think that's possible? I mean, it's no lie that our public education system in large has moved further and further away from morality and from truth. And specifically what I'm talking about is biblical truth. There has been a big push in the last many years to look at empirical research, empirical evidence, and to look at those things that happen to come from people's and parties' agendas that they want to include in the public education system. One of the big pushes that we see in the public education system right now, and I've had trainings on it, and it's just about any school you go to, you're probably going to find some sort of training on this if it's a public school, is a training on implicit bias. And basically what the training says is that if you are a white person, that you have implicit bias, and they all but call you, and in some instances they do call you, that you're racist. Alright? And so you have that to contend with. And folks, just because you're white, just because you're Hispanic, just because you're African American, just because you're Asian, does not make you a racist. Your color does not make you a racist. That is racist to say that your color makes you a racist. And so that's a message that I don't understand why they're saying that, because that, to me, is a very racist message all on its own. But even bigger issues that we look at that is, you get into curriculum and you look at what curriculum says. Now, I am blessed to be teaching social studies. I love teaching social studies. I teach a history class, and through my history class, I'm allowed, and I get the privilege to talk about some very interesting and very cool things that's happened in world history, in U.S. history, and even in Kentucky's history, and sometimes even locally. There's some really interesting things we get to cover. But we also get the privilege of making relationships with students. Now, as a Christian, regardless of who your boss is, regardless of who you work for, you cannot, as a true Christian, separate your Christian identity, your Christian beliefs from your job. You just can't do it. You can't take off your Christian hat and put on your Christian hat whenever you want to. When you go to work, you're a Christian at work. One of the things that we do at work, and when I first started where I'm working at, we had a staff fellowship and Bible study that they would meet and have breakfast. Well, that hasn't happened in a while, and after COVID hit, it just kind of went from the wayside, and I spent all last year praying about it and really considering opening this up, but I was waiting to see if anybody else would do it. Nobody did it. And so this year, I made it my point through prayer and talking to God about it and talking to others about it to offer up a staff in prayer fellowship. And that's what we're doing, and it has been wonderful. Folks, the way that you change your culture, the way that you get Christ into the schools is by modeling Christ, by being a witness, by being that light in the school system. In my classroom, I don't allow any cursing. Part of my class rules, integrity, honor, honesty, all of these things. And if anybody were to ask where I get them from, I get them from my faith. We were asked to do a video not too long ago about what got us through 2020, and it was a staff video to communicate through the students. Kind of one of those things where the students get an opportunity to know the staff. And hands down, in my video, I said that my faith in God is what got me through 2020. We also have these little book things that ask you what you're reading. 1,700 students. It's hard to remember all of their names, but you try to make a point to do that. And so I learned early on, even before education, that you got to make a rapport with students. You got to have that relationship. You got to keep it professional. You got to keep it responsible. But you got to do it in a manner to where you are respecting them, and it causes them to respect you. You respect the kid, and they will eventually respect you, especially if they ever come into an instance where you come into conflict with that student. If you treat them respectful, I found 9 out of 10 times they are respectful back. They may not be in the moment, but I've had students apologize to me and then treat me with even more respect because I didn't throw them under the bus, or because I didn't just write them up for something, or because, I actually had an opportunity to talk to them and really help them through a situation. I was showing Christ to them, and I never even mentioned Christ to them. Now, am I saying that you can't mention Christ to a student? No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is you got to be careful in how you do it. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's too many people that are all too willing to throw you under the bus and completely remove your witness from the school system. But you know what I do to introduce Christ into the school system? I pray. And I ask God this simple thing, and He's never let me down. I ask God to give me the opportunity, or to open a door for me to talk about God. You see, the way that I've been taught is that we have to be careful about just bringing up our faith to students, though I don't see anything wrong with that. But if a student asks you a question, about God, about Jesus, I respond. And the school systems may not like that because a lot of them do not want Christ in the school, but they have to understand that I can't just separate myself as a teacher from a Christian, and I will never do that, and I refuse to do that. And they may find that disrespectful, they may find that distasteful, and a lot of the times it's because they don't believe in Christianity. But folks, I'm telling you, if we don't have Christ in the schools, then we will be fighting a losing battle, because that is the reason our communities and our families and our kids are in the shape that they're in, is because Christ has been removed from their life. And so I'm telling you, as a public school teacher, do not be afraid to be a Christian. Do not be afraid to represent Christ in your school, through your life, through your beliefs, even through the way that you teach. Model it after Christ. In what you teach, model it after Christ. If there are things that you cannot teach because it contradicts your faith, you always have the option to say, according to wherever the source is from, this is what they say. But don't be afraid to offer alternative view. In fact, I encourage students to look at a topic or a subject from multiple viewpoints. I don't tell them which way is the right way, but I do give them the option to figure it out. And I believe this is being a responsible Christian. In this way, it allows me to teach our curriculum, our state curriculum, our local district curriculum. I don't even have to contradict it. I teach it, let my students have the open mind that they should have, and I model Christ to them in such a manner where I'm not shoving Jesus down their throat. You can ask any of my students. I'm not bringing God up or bringing Jesus up to them. Now, if they bring Him up to me, then I'll talk about it. But through my life, through the way I conduct myself, through my speech, through my actions, through my relationship, my rapport, the respect, my sincerity, I show Christ to my kids, and so can you. So I encourage you and I challenge you. If you're in a situation where you're working in a school, a public school, and you're finding that you're being persecuted, or you're being forced into a corner, or you're being forced out of your Christian identity, don't let them do that. Fight that. Stand up and fight that. Let them understand that you don't just take it, that believing and serving God, that confessing Jesus is not a hat or a coat that you take off whenever you want to. In fact, your faith in Jesus prohibits you from doing that. You're either hot or you're cold. You're either for God or you're against God. You don't get to be for God one minute and against God the next second. There'll be no consequences. Your faith requires you to be for God and to put first, to seek first the kingdom of God. And so I impart that with you today. I know it's a short video, but I felt like it needed to be said, especially in a time to where almost every institution, almost every alliance, almost every peripheral organization that has to do around our communities, a lot of them are slowly trying to edge out the church, and more specifically edge out Jesus, and to make Jesus sound like he is against what they stand for, because he is. Oftentimes Jesus is against what a lot of these organizations require people to believe, people to do, because it's of the world. So folks, if it's contrary to God, you are against it if you're a Christian. Don't fool yourself. Stand up for God. Preach Christ. Be a light. And God will take care of you. God bless. Have a good day, y'all.